Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. I'm so glad you could join us today. Yeah, I know your time's valuable. You're busy. You're putting out fires out there. You're running your crews. You're trying to make a profit. And so we're thankful that you're able to take a little bit of your time and spend it with us today. My guest for you is got some really exciting information to share. And so I'm sure you're wondering, who does she have on this episode? So I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Steven Kirch and Suzy Kirch from Profit Minds. They are going to bring us a brand new topic that we've not talked about on this show before. And we're going to be exploring how AI can really help increase your top line and your bottom line profits. Very timely topic, as I just came off of a coaching call with one of my coaching members this morning, and we got on this topic. And of course, he wanted to grab an app for everything and forget the real people out there, but realizing we still need to have real, live, breathing people on our teams. So with that, welcome, Dr. Steven and Suzy.
Thank you. We're
Thanks.
happy to be here.
Thanks so much, Diane.
Well, we're going to explore the topic of AI. And I hear that Suzy is an AI guru. So we're going to throw the ball in her court first and say, Suzy, how in the world can AI help us become more efficient, help us become more accurate, help us become better in the home service industry?
So one of the ways I like to describe generative AI is as a tireless intern. Doesn't necessarily know anything. So generative AI, just so everybody knows what specifically we're talking about things like ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini, and so on. And these are language models that are built to predict the next word. So it looks at all the context that it's already seen, and it just predicts the next word. So whenever you give context, whenever you give it information and ask a question, it responds based on what you've given it by predicting the logical next word based on basically having studied the internet. So it doesn't necessarily know anything, which is why we say that expertise, your own expertise, is so critical. But it's a great intern. It is really good at doing something that you ask it to do, and it's not going to give you any lip if you ask it to do it over and over and over again. So this is one of those where if you're asking for, hey, I need a roadmap for this specific task for doing this specific process, and it gives you back a roadmap and you're like, well, actually, I need to change steps 3 and 5, and I need to make sure that this piece gets in there too. And then ask it to do it again, and it'll rebuild it now with that new information. And so you can ask it to do the same thing, and it'll get better as you teach it what you need, as you teach it the context of your own existence, your own business. And so when you're asking it to do certain processes, it can help you make plans. It can help you create those checklists. I'm always forgetting things on checklists. You know, you write your packing checklist, and I've forgotten to put on socks somehow. Right? We've all forgotten something off of a checklist. So things like that, where you can give it some information and it can basically make sure that you don't have to deal with a blank page anymore.
Yeah, I think a great application for this, for the home service business in particular, would be like a checklist for either onboarding a new client, a new customer, or sending a crew out to do a specific job. There might be a set of processes that they need to go through at the beginning so that, you don't have to worry about, did they do this? Did they do that? Did they have all of this information? All of the information that they need could be also put into a form or a document that they need, that the AI could help them generate, and make sure they don't lose something. Making a revision to it is pretty easy, because when you come back from the field and you say, oh, we forgot to add this, right? well, that was a piece that we should have had. Well, maybe we add that to the checklist. And so the next time you have a brand new checklist, you don't have to recreate it. Or think about training for a new crew or a new member of your team as you're growing your business. How quickly you could bring on a new person if you have a training checklist or training videos that then they need to watch or whatever, and make sure they've actually done that. You could have the AI even create tests to make sure that they've actually done it. Show them a picture, make them, describe what's going on in the picture. Do they really understand what that looks like? And get the AI to give them feedback.
I
All kinds of things like that could be done.
I think of in my own world, different times that we've had a checklist and expected a team member to fill out the checklist that you've actually done the various steps to get the job done. And it gets to me and it's incomplete, but every check mark has been checked and initialed off, where AI wouldn't skip those steps just for the ability to turn it in and get it in on time. Because we as humans will sometimes shortcut the process. And then you don't get a consistent result. As in my case, then I get to send it back to them and say, but you checked off that you did this and this isn't done. So I'm sure I'm not the only one that struggles with that. I'm sure
Right.
all teams have that type of struggles.
And one of the interesting things that you can do with the AI, if you have the AI on your phone, you can actually talk to it and have it talk back to you. What's the next step? And then you say, oh, okay, I've done this, and you record what you did. And then the AI would then transcribe that. And so your checklist could be a phone conversation on the AI app, rather than having the technician or whoever it is that's doing the work having to write things down and fill out a form. You just have the next things on the list come up. Okay, AI, what's next? And have it and have an interaction rather than relying on somebody checking a box and filling out a form.
We've come a long way in a short period of time
Yes, we have.
with this.
It's amazing what you can do if you just think about things in a little bit different way. And I think that's one of the values of working with someone like Suzy, who really understands how this works, to change your mindset about what can be done.
So I'm sure that some of our listeners are going, yeah, let me at it. This sounds really cool. And others are going, wait a minute. I'm not sure I want to go there. Help, Suzy. What do you do?
Well, so this is one of those things where, for better or for worse, we have a lot of media where it's talking about robots taking over the world, right? You got Terminator, you have iRobot, where you got all the robots are rebelling and they're trying to kill people, and right? We have this image of what artificial intelligence is, and that's not what we actually have, nor is it what we're talking about. I know there are some people who are afraid that AI is going to take their job and then they're going to be out of work. But this is one of those where if you learn to use AI effectively and efficiently, now you are more productive, you're getting more done, and now you become so much more valuable because you can get twice, 3 times, 5 times as much done in the same amount of time. And so now the work that you do is even better, right? So it's a matter of finding how can you leverage the technology to make you a more valuable worker, a more valuable employee, a more valuable business owner, right? You can use it to get a lot of your menial tasks done, a lot of the busy work, right? We all have finance stuff, and unless you're an accountant, you probably don't like dealing with it, right? There's a lot of tiny little boxes, and you got to get the number exactly right or everything, blows up, right? So you can offload some of the tasks that you don't want to do to AI. And so it's about finding how can you use it in ways that will help you, right? It's not trying to take over the world. It's not actually intelligent. So how can you learn to use it well? And I found that it's really fun because there's also some of these weird things where you can ask it really meta questions like, hey, ChatGPT, how can I use ChatGPT to solve this problem?
Oh, really?
It's one of my favorite things is to ask ChatGPT how to use ChatGPT or, Claude or Copilot again. Any of these platforms, you can do the same thing. Hey, how can I use this? I have this problem, or I'm trying to leverage AI to do this thing. How can I do that? And you can ask it for the prompt that you need. You don't need to come up with a prompt. You can ask it to do that for you. And so
Wow.
there's a lot of these really funny things where like I don't go, hey Suzy, how can I help myself do that's not a question that I'm asking. But we can ask generative AI to help us come up with ways to use it. But it's a matter of remembering that it's an option and kind of that own personal internal transformation of not can AI help, but how can AI help?
I know with I'm going to use the word limited use of it because I've used it quite a bit, but still limited compared to some people. I'm amazed at how smart it can make me look because I'll ask it a question
Yep.
and it'll give me this answer. It's like, I never would have even thought about that. And so I keep asking it questions and it's like, wow, I might have got 2 of those 5, but I never would have got the other 3 as far as thinking through the process or developing a process.
Yeah, it's a really great thought partner.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people make the mistake of asking generative AI for the answer. And sometimes it hallucinates. That's
It
what we
does.
call it. When it goes off the rails, that it's interesting. That was actually built in from the very beginning. They actually put in a certain amount of randomness in the prediction algorithm because they don't want it to sound exactly the same all of the time. So yes, the context matters, and what you tell it up front makes a huge difference in how it will approach the problem. But the best thing to do is to ask generative AI, give me 3 options for, as opposed to tell me what to do.
No, we were using it recently in my Profit Amplifier coaching group, and we've been working on the topic of systems and then processes. And so we were getting some ideas. What types of systems should a home service business have? And what are some of the processes within each of these systems? Well, we went on and on with this for, about an hour in the coaching group. And then finally, towards the end, I said, based on the information that you've shared above, can you please create a playbook for, and then listed, one at a time. We just kept asking that same question over and over. I was amazed at how thorough it was just based on this long string of conversation we had been having. And I thought it would have taken us months to create that ourselves, but
Yeah,
it
and
created that for us.
one of the other things that can be really useful is if you're depending on what you're trying to figure out a solution for, you can have it spit out, I don't know, 20 or so different solutions. And usually you've maybe thought of 2 of those. But then you can ask it to create a scoring rubric
Oh, wow.
based on, I have this specific set of criteria that I know. Can you fill out the set of criteria so that you can create a scoring rubric and then score these 20 based on XYZ? And then have it come up with okay, so here's the 20 we came up with. Now here's the top 3. And now you're choosing between the top 3. I don't want to look at a set of 20. That's terrifying. I don't want to have to pick between 20 things. You want me to narrow that down? No. At least I'm not going to. Right? But I can have generative AI look at the list. And oh, by the way, if you're having it done as if it's the different experts are coming up with these solutions, because you can always leverage expertise that it has as its referenceability, right? It, however many books, you can say, hey, I want different potential solutions to this problem that have been written about in books by experts. And then have the expert tell me what they would suggest. And then you can have them critiquing each other's solutions.
Oh my goodness.
What does expert A think about expert C's solution and vice versa? And right, you can use it to generate all of these ideas and all of these things that I certainly wouldn't think of. I always love getting the books by experts for potential solutions, and then I'll show it to Dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, how many of these have you read? Because he reads all of the books, it feels like. And so, right, a lot of times he's read a lot of the books, but he may not have thought of the solution that I came up with based on that book, right? So it's approaching problems from so many different angles, right? We usually have one, maybe 2 that we can think of, and it's not necessarily from different sides. But that's one of the beauties of generative AI, is it's not limited to our singular perspective.
One thing that I've done is I'll ask it a question or a prompt or whatever and get some sort of an answer from it. And then you can tell by looking behind me, I'm a little bit of a Mike Michalowicz junkie. And then I'll say, now, based on how Mike Michalowicz would answer this, and then I'll get it to give me another set and we'll see how different they are. Or I'll pick a different author, somebody who's prolific out there. Based on this person, what type of an answer would we get? And it's really cool to see the different perspectives that way too, to the same question. And that has been helpful when we're struggling with something. Let's get some other perspectives outside of our own. And so I love that it can do that, because I'm just one person and I'm in a small office. I don't have 15 or 20 people and say, hey guys, we need a round table and let's talk about it. I don't have that option. So, but you can get your round table by asking those experts out there.
Right.
And they don't even know that they've been asked.
Right. One of the things that it's very lonely being the owner of a small business.
Yes.
It can feel very lonely. And one of the things that many business growth experts recommend is that you wind up with a board of directors of people that can advise you on a variety of topics. Well, why not create a board of advisors based on the world's greatest authors? Have, I don't know, you could have Albert Einstein as your scientific advisor, right? You can have, pick somebody in the sales field or somebody in the marketing or, finance. You can pick the world's great authors and have that ongoing discussion. And just when you have a question, you go to that discussion in your Chat GPT or your Claude or whatever your instance, and you say, hey, board of directors, what do you think about this? What should I do here? And get each of them to suggest ideas.
Something else that I've personally used it for is getting a quick summary of somebody's book. It might be a book that I read 5-10 years ago and you remember kind of, sort of, but hey, AI, please give me a summary of whatever the book is, and it'll give you a couple pages. It'll say, oh yeah, now I remember, because like your dad, I read a lot of books, and sometimes I can't remember where the concept came from.
Yep.
Author
Yep.
A, B, C, D, E, yeah, it doesn't matter. Where did it come from? But I can get that quick book summary, or I can throw out what I kind of remember as a quote that somebody said and throw that out there. Who said this? And you can get some
Yeah.
pretty quick information that way, which is very helpful as a small business owner, especially a home service business owner who maybe that's not their first language, is
Right.
some of these things.
Well, and one of the interesting twists that I would add on to that, give me a summary of this book. Give me the top X ideas, 7, 10 ideas out of this book, and tell me how they would apply to me as a person in this business, or as a coach, or as an accountant, or as a, right? So tell me how they would apply to me in my role.
Ooh, I love that.
So there's another way of leveraging
Mhm.
what ChatGPT could do for you.
Well, as I was talking to one of my coaching members this morning, he was talking about there's an app that would diagnose the problems when your service tech comes out to somebody's house. And then there's an app that'll take that information and it'll go order the parts and stuff for you and actually get them ordered correctly, as opposed to the human error that he had been encountering. And then there's an app, and he was going on and on and on, and I'm thinking, I don't live in that world because I work with them. I don't have a home service business. But the thought that there was apps that could do all these things that normally was taking people, and he was having such a hard time with the quality of the work that they're doing. So if we can bypass some of these things that maybe a newer person in the industry doesn't know how to do, and let the app do it, it'll always get it right, or almost always, should get it right, and be way more efficient, and in the long run, save money because we're getting the right part ordered, we're getting it there on time, and the service tech can go out and do their job, or the installer can do their job, that type of thing. I thought that was pretty cool, just listening to him going on with this list of apps, because he just came back from a conference. So
Yeah,
there's an
you
app
could
for
you
that.
could you could even you could even build your own tool to do that.
Mhm.
That you take a picture of the product plate, right?
Mhm.
This is the model number, this is the serial number, therefore you know exactly when it was built, and you can go look, you can look up the parts list
Right.
from the manual that exists somewhere,
Somewhere.
right?
Mhm.
And get the exact part that you need. Once you say which part it is that you need, you can look at the parts list and say, that's the one, there's the model, there's the part number, and put that into your order form.
Mhm.
So you could even build something like that yourself, because you can take a picture and ask ChatGPT or your generative AI of choice to describe the picture. What's in the picture?
I just think there's so many ways that we can be using it, and we get busy just doing the way we've always done something.
Yeah.
That's our fallback, our comfort
Yeah.
zone. I've
Yeah.
always done it this way. It's worked in the past. We'll just keep doing it.
Yeah. So, right. So axes have been used for centuries plus to chop down trees.
Mhm.
And somebody comes over and he's like, here's a chainsaw. It's
It's
better
much better at
it's
chopping down
much
trees.
better at chopping down trees. And the person starts swinging it at the tree going, this is terrible. This is awful. Why would you say that this is better? And you go, first of all, please stop swinging the chainsaw. Second, do you want me to show you how to turn it on?
Right.
Right? The chainsaw makes a terrible axe, but know how to use it, and it can do a lot of stuff. And so that's a for me, I find that story hilarious, but so accurate for generative AI. We're so used to, you go to Google, you go to Google search, you type in the thing, and it gives you stuff back, and then you sit and you sift through, right? I feel like in all of my research projects that I did in school, I got so good at learning how to Google stuff because that was almost more of what I learned than what I was supposed to actually be learning. But that's
You're not
not
supposed to
the
say that to
only.
the guy that funded your education, by the way.
Hey, I'm so good at Googling stuff now. You know, I learned plenty, right? Like
No,
the thing is like, but take any given project, and sometimes you learn more about how to Google stuff because the way that you had been Googling previously may not be the way that you need to. So we're so used to that text to text feel that that's what we do, right? We get given a little text box, and so we assume text has to go in. But you also have files can go in, code can go in, images can go in. You can speak to it if you're using the app. And so it's a matter of remembering text to text isn't the only option anymore.
So I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here and say, but is it safe to upload your files or your images?
So there are challenges with information going out, right? The thing that if you have in particular, and I can speak to Chat GPT, I know there are other provisions in other generative AI programs. In Chat GPT, if you have a Teams account, you can tell it not to use any of the content that's in any of the conversations for training the AI. So you can tell it, and now, do you believe them? That's a different problem. I can't solve that one. But that's at the bottom of our screen, right? It says interactions with profit minds will not be used to train open AI models, right? So you get that protection. You can also, there are vendors who offer your own private instance of a generative AI, right?
And
So
they're
you
not
can
hooked out to the ones that are being used for training.
correct. There are upsides and downsides to all of that. The other thing is, of course, if you're taking a picture of the nameplate of a piece of equipment, that's not really proprietary.
No.
Right. So and figuring out how to solve a particular problem, right? Looking at a picture, that's not particularly proprietary, right? If you have stuff that is proprietary and your special sauce as to what you do and how you do it, you might want to think twice before you just upload that.
I think of the kids and how they just regurgitate everything into whatever their social media platform. It used to be Facebook and now it's wherever. I mean, open mouth, let it go with no filters on it. How dangerous that has been over time. And we have to use that same type of a thought, I think, as we're using AI. Just be careful. Don't put people's names. I know in my world, in the accounting world, have to be careful. Anything we upload, we scrub the names, we scrub any reference to anybody off of it, pull it, export it out into an Excel or a Word file so we can, change the file name. I mean, all that type of stuff that we do before we would upload anything so that nobody's data is being shared that, is proprietary information. We're super careful about how we word our prompts and things like that so that we're not putting somebody's identity at risk or something along those lines. So just a little bit of caution, a little bit of, I'm gonna use the word common sense, being careful what you're saying, how you're saying it, what you're uploading, some of the questions you're asking, things like that, to put a little bit of a safeguard around it. Because in the right hands, it's great, and in the wrong hands, it's not. So what about somebody who's not techie? Can they still use AI? I think of my husband. He can barely turn on a computer.
Let me jump in and say one of the primary reasons that I asked Suzy to join me in this is because Suzy has, as one of her superpowers, the ability to take stuff that is extremely complex technically and explain it to people who are not particularly technology literate or sophisticated. So
pretty much
Suzy, yeah,
anybody could use it with a little bit of help.
Yeah.
Suzy,
So one of the things to remember with generative AI is learning to communicate with it is not like learning to program, right? You're not having to learn a new syntax. You're not having to learn, Python, C++, Java, HTML, any of those.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, they're programming languages. When you're friends with a lot of computer scientist nerds, you can, list any number of dozens of different programming languages. But that's not how you communicate with generative AI. You're using plain written English, regular spoken English. So if you can communicate in English, you can use it. And oh, by the way, if you have a spelling error in there, it can usually read through that. I never pretend to have good spelling. My mom made fun of my spelling all through grade school. Is, all in love, but I never pretend to have good spelling. And so I know that I don't have to worry about having perfect spelling while I'm talking to ChatGPT because it can figure it out. If your grammar isn't perfect, it can figure it out. And so that's one of those things where you're not needing to use super high technology jargon. You're not having to use legalese or anything like that. You just talk to it how you would any other human being. I find myself using please a lot, which I think, my parents would be proud of that I'm still saying please, even though it's a robot. But that's one of those things to remember is it's not a new language that you're learning.
I was with a group of proactive tax accountants, and we were in a meeting room, and several of us asked the same question, but I put in please and thank you. And they were amazed at the better answer I got. It was more robust, everything, because we said please and thank you. And they said, I never say please and thank you. I says, but didn't your mama teach you to say please and thank you? And so and ever since then, I've always said please and thank you. And I don't know, because I have not compared it to anybody else's, but in that one instance, we had about 5 of us that asked the same question, and you got a better answer from what everybody looked at when you said please and thank you. So I don't know, something to look at. So keep saying please and thank you, Suzy. Keep our moms proud of us.
Oh, yeah.
I know AI's been out for a while, and some people have been rather slow to come into it. So why do you think it's important that we jump on now as opposed to, I'll wait till the bugs are worked out of it, a couple years from now? What does that do to a potential home service business if they don't start embracing this?
So I think the challenge is really only when, it's not if. And the sooner you adopt it, the sooner you can take advantage of it. And it will continuously improve. There isn't going to be a point in time when we say, okay, now all of the bugs are out of it. This is the worst it's ever going to be. What we have today is the worst it's ever going to be. It's going to continue to get better and better. But you're missing out on an opportunity. If you don't start today and your competitors do, what does that do to your business, your ability to get things done efficiently within your operation? And all that goes along with that, your competitive edge could be gone.
It very well could. I think how many times as a small business owner are you trying to do the stuff that they out there say we need to do? Posting on social media, writing blog articles, newsletter articles, all that type of stuff. And I don't know about most people out there, but that's kind of painful to actually sit down and do that. Well, I've named my chat GPT. Her name is Gabby. Like, okay, Gabby, time for us to go to work. You're really good in the words. I'm better in the numbers. So let's put our two heads together, and I'll sit down and knock out blog articles pretty quickly. Now they're not 100%, but I can take what Gabby has created and add a few more touches to it, fine tune it, make it sound a little bit more. She's getting better about sounding like me. And then be able to use those for my social media, for my newsletters, for things like that. And I thought, what a time saver. I used to hire a writer, a ghostwriter to help me do this because I just struggled with it. And now Gabby helps me. And I don't have to worry. I lost my ghostwriter about a year ago. He moved to a different group where he was working from where he was working. But now Gabby helps me do this stuff. And I don't feel like I'm in a panic mode of time to do the monthly newsletter and I don't have any articles and I'm too busy to stop and think about it. It's like, hey, Gabby, what are we going to talk about today? And we just start playing with ideas. And so it's been a time saver on those kinds of things that are important, but yet sometimes can slip lower in the to-do list because we've got to get the invoicing done, or we've got to get this person, return their phone call, or we've got to go meet with this other person. Those things seem to take higher priorities. But yet knowing that you've got an assistant out there who can help you with those types of things has been a real stress reliever for me. And I'm sure other people listening to this can say the same thing. Like that kind of stuff is painful. And to keep up the frequency that you're supposed to, to be posting out there and, those types of things. It's painful unless writing is your first language, and then they enjoy doing it. But for the rest of us, how nice to have Gabby as an assistant.
Right.
Yeah, I use it to make me sound coherent all the time.
Uh-huh.
I have all of the thoughts are there in the mush that is my brain, and I can spit it out, and then it doesn't sound coherent at all, and nobody understands it but me. So I give it to generative AI and say, hey, make this is the information, put it in this sort of thing for this sort of use. And it, ta-da, here's our first email. And then, a day or two later, I was like, oh, I need a follow-up for that thing that we were previously working on. And here's some information. And it remembered from the previous conversation. And so it was, oh, and here's all that information that you gave me last time that you didn't give me this time. And, so now it's all nice and coherent and you sound like an intelligent human being. And right, it's all of those things that are just so useful. I'm a mathematician. I'm not a words make sense human.
That's her sister.
That's my sister, yeah.
And I'll say, being in the accounting world, I'm a numbers person first, words are second. And so anytime I can use it to smooth out something that I wrote, upload it, put it in there, have it make it more concise, or maybe fluff it up, because I tend to be like the old Dragnet show, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts, ma'am. And that is really boring when somebody's reading it. You got to fluff it up a little bit. And it's gotten comfortable with who I am and what I do. I don't have to give it as much background information as I did at first. And it'll fluff up my short little, maybe it's a 200 word something I created, and it'll make it a 500 or a 600 word article that sounds pretty darn good with my basic ideas in there. It's like, wow, that's better than I could have done.
Yeah, again, it's a matter of leveraging it for doing those tasks that either you don't like to do or are not very good at, to start there. And the routine tasks that it doesn't take a great deal of understanding. Again, this is a very competent, tireless intern.
Yes. One of them that I love is Otter. I have Otter running behind every meeting, live or through the computer. And at the end, I'll ask it to give me the key takeaways and then the action items. And now I've got this amazing set of notes that I upload to the client afterwards. I'm giving my secrets away. And they think I really took good notes while we were talking. My notes were chicken scratch. But because I've got an AI program running behind it, it's able to give me a nice set of meeting notes. And we both know what our action items are, and we can check them off and get them done. So that has
Yeah.
been a huge help to me.
That's great. Yeah, in the newsletter, I had a colleague who said he spent 10 to 12 hours a month writing his newsletter.
Yeah.
And it's now less than 2 hours.
Right. I do mine in 2 hours a month now. We're 8 pages, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
pretty
that's
cool
that's a
compared to
great
before.
one for
Yeah.
the home service businesses. You can ask it to go find relevant articles and then make a commentary on it that's in your voice or as a part of your newsletter.
It'll help you develop your FAQs for your website. It'll help you do all kinds of stuff that is painful, therefore it never got done.
Right.
So I think it's allowing us to do more of that and to look more professional because now we've got more information out there than we had before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just makes us look better. Well, we are starting to run out of time. And so what I want to do is shift the focus on this a little bit. We've had fun talking about AI and all the fun ways we can use it. But it's now time for us to ask my famous question at the end of every podcast interview. And I've got my little bucket here. It says, "Whoops, proud to be profitable." And I'm going to throw some money in it. And my question is, what is a hidden or unique profit leak that you've seen as you're working with home service businesses? We are making this amazing collection of these hidden profit leaks that will turn into something, not sure what, but it'll turn into something down the road.
Well, I can think of a couple of things that you could do with AI, and I think I mentioned a little bit of it earlier, that would really be uh, a, a way of bolstering profits by making the teams more efficient and effective. One of the things that you can do is to take your top technician, the best person for doing each of the tasks that you and have them create a training video and make sure that everybody's watching it. And creating those checklists. How does that person do that to make sure that it's really done right and that you don't have to go back, because that's the challenge. If you get it done right the first time, your profits are much better than if you have to go back. So everything that you can do to make sure that the service that you delivered is what you promised and that it fixed the problem, and of course the minimum amount of time, but to leverage the experts and to make sure that they're helping you create those checklists. How do they do it? How do they approach it? What's their methodology for diagnosing problems? Because that's often a big problem. And then making sure that it's really done right.
Thank you. That's some great hidden profit leaks. And when we first started this podcast, we knew we wanted to go deeper than what's just sitting on a P&L or a balance sheet. I want to go more than just raise your prices or cut your costs. We wanted to go deeper. So what are these hidden profit leaks that we're not always thinking about? Because profit leaks out of a business, there's probably hundreds of ways that profit is leaking out of a business. So thank you for sharing that one with me. And if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about profit mines, want to tell them where they can go and what they need to be doing?
Sure. Well, obviously, go to our website, profitmines.net. That's the place to go. If you want to learn more about the AI activities, there is a specific AI page there, profitmines.net/AI. And we also have a special offer for the guests. We have the opportunity to get access to a platform that normally costs $2,000 per year for a company. We're willing to give you a year of that for free. And the link to that will be in the show notes.
Okay. Thank you. That's an amazing offer. Thank you for doing that. So if we all work together, we can help make the home service industry much more profitable, running smoothly, give them back some time, take some stress off of their shoulders, and make for happier families in the long run and happier employees as well. So thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. Remember, it's not how much that you bring in top line revenue, it's how much you're able to keep in the bottom line net profit of your business. So thank you again. We'll see you next time. Be sure and check the show notes because I always have a freebie down there to give away for you as well. So be sure and claim your freebie from me and your freebie from Dr. Steven and Suzy, and put this information to work in your business. And we'll catch you on the next episode.